Good morning. It's a bit chilly and windy this morning. They've forecast gusts up to 40 knots this afternoon, so that's put paid to my sailing plans for the day. So instead of going sailing and showing you how to set the boat up, I'll show you how I go about packing it down after the last sail. That includes putting the mast down, washing down the trailer, which is very important, also flushing out the engine. And in the second half of the video, I'll show you how, despite our inexperience and a few hiccups along the way, we managed to pour some ballast for Sarah Ann so she wouldn't sail on her ear. So this raising and lowering of the mast can be really stressful and really complex. So you've got to simplify everything just to work out how to get everything in your favour. Now, what I'm looking at here, is there any obstruction preventing me from lowering the mast? I'll make sure I clear the corner of the house so you can see the clouds ripping through there from the northwest, westerly even. Yeah, westerly, turning to southwesterly tomorrow. Probably not the best day to be on the water. I do like those conditions though. I do enjoy that. There. Yeah, okay, so now you've seen that that's taken up on that straight away. And we'll put that pin straight back in. So I've gone for 10mm on this, really overkill. Heading back this way, there's my safety line as I lower it. And you see that she wants to go backwards. Not really a fan of this dynamo for this job, it's really slippery. Okay, yeah, see how both those shrouds have gone slack straight away. Go down nice and low. Come back. Keeping it nice and straight. You can do terminal damage to your tabernacle if you get out of control. About this stage you can see it going sideways, right. So unfortunately I have to let go of that. Anyway, from that angle it doesn't work. From that angle the forestay will just allow mast to crash, so it's not that heavy. And there she sits. Now you can see I've used self-amalgamating tape on here. This spreaders are not that strong. I'm a bit worried about fatigue here because they get bent a bit. Move that forward so they don't catch. Too many things in the cockpit. Should have emptied that out first. No, there's nothing much stopping it now. The solar panel is mounted really solidly. How strong is it here? Don't know. But there's almost no weight on it. We've got our backstay. It's more of a permanent backstay than a running backstay, but I have set it up so that I can tighten it if in the event that I end up with a spinnaker, which I would really like. Spinnakers are good fun. Yeah, so that can't go anywhere. Issue is the rudder. Definitely don't want the rudder swing. So with the mast packed down and secured, you're ready to hit the road back home. And then the first thing you got to do when you get back home is wash your trailer down. So that is because this needs repacking. So this one doesn't have a cutless bearing This has stuffing box on. I'm fortunate enough to have very high pressure where I am, but normally I would use a pressure cleaner to get the salt out of all the nooks and crannies. You need to get right in there around all the wheel bearings and especially around the brakes and in between the leaf springs, and right up inside all the steel cross sections. In many cases, the trailer is a bigger investment than the boat itself. If you live in a hot climate, such as up in the tropics where we came from, you'll find that the heat combined with the salt ruins the trailer very quickly. And the same goes for the motor, whether it's an outboard or an inboard. Every time you take your boat out, you're going to find a number of little things that need tweaking in this. Not such a small thing. She needed a lot more ballast. So I was able to beg, borrow and steal enough lead to give me about 160 kilos, but of course it all needed smelting, and that was something I'd never done before. You can see there all the dross that comes from the paint. Some of the ingots are quite clean, but those ones with the paint, they came out of a mate's Ross 780. I think the trickiest part of creating this setup was creating a stop valve that you could actually open and shut the lead pour as needed. And I did this by putting a nut and welding it on an offset, putting a bolt through it and then tapering the end of the bolt, and that enabled me to get a shifter onto that and tighten it up or loosen it depending on whether you want the lead to flow. It's a very satisfying thing to do, and we had to tinker around quite a bit. The first setup we used an incinerator and couldn't get enough heat into it, so in the end I used my old childhood steam engine experience of lighting a fire around the boiler to get it all up so it started to pour. You get a fair bit of fluffy stuff comes through. I learnt in the process of doing this that you should really scrape that off, but you can hit it with a hammer afterwards and it flattens down nicely. The way we were set up here, it was definitely a two-person job to keep it all under control. Found that this is a big section of angle iron that we're using to create the forms, and the dividers that separate each of the bricks were more or less up and down, so they were not 90 degrees exactly, and that made it a bit difficult to get the ingots out. If I was doing it again, I'd put a bit of steel on the ground and create a bit of a track so that I could slide the forms along without spilling the ingots. The lead that we used was a combination of hard lead and soft lead. Now, what I mean by hard lead, I'm pretty sure that it's created by putting antimony in the lead to give it a bit more resilience. But we had a combination of the two, so it would have just diluted the antimony. And because of where it is, it's not on the bottom of a keel, and so it's not going to get any direct wear.
I've traveled this big world, lonesome I have roamed. I've laid down in green pastures, I've rolled down rocky roads. And as my hair turned silver, I lost my lust for gold. Now cups of wine can't satisfy the thirst within my soul. Narrow is the road to glory. Perdition's gates are broad and wide. On the steps you take to ponder, from the path to not far wander, for the narrow road to glory's worth the price. I broke bread with the wicked, I made my plans with fools. To the gates of destruction I've led many others through, and though my sins were many.
It doesn't take long for you to become bored with the pace of things. You can see our first attempt there on the left, second attempt, and then accelerating it using the blower and putting some guarding around the outside to keep the heat in, and it did ramp up the speed quite nicely. The end result of our hard day's labour was 11 ingots, each weighing 10 kilograms, so 110, and that was to be added to what was already in the boat, giving me 160 kilos in total. And watching this just now, I know why it is that I'm so sore in the pecs today. There is a little bit of anxiety as I lift these ingots into place, because if I was to drop one, it would go straight through the bottom of the boat. In the same way, if they're not secured properly in place and we get knocked down, then they may well fall out and go straight through the side of the boat. So these ingots are about 10 kilos each, and I want to get them bearing evenly on the surface here. Most of the weight is to be taken here on the keel. I've cut this bit of soft neoprene rubber and it'll fit into this quite nicely. Unfortunately, I cut it just one row too wide, so they're very grippy. So the idea is I'll put the first one in lengthwise, so it's sitting, it just sits there on the end of the stem post there, the knee inside the stem post, and that looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. Alright, so that's bearing nicely against here. I don't really want to put another one out here because it's too much weight. I did toy with the idea of melting down the weights off my weight belt, but I thought, well, as soon as I do that, I'm going to probably get myself a big, thicker wetsuit sometime, and I'm probably going to need them. So instead, I'll just store them in this same compartment as the ballast. I tied each section of ballast up with cable ties and wrapped it up in that rubber so that it can't separate and move independently, but I'm going to put some wooden cleats on top. So now, let's just put the bedding in.